very happy today to have Mary Langley with us. Mary is a Canadian expatriate and a retiree living up the coast from Panama City in an area called Playa Blanca. I'm going to turn to Mary and ask her, give us just a few words about where you come from, what your life's been like, and how you ended up here in Panama.
Well, I'm from the western part of Canada. I live in Vancouver, and I've been coming to Panama for about 10 years. I retired, and my dream had always been to have a house in the tropics, someplace different. I've always traveled, and I wanted to live in another country. So about 10 years ago, I started looking at places around the world, and I'm not even quite sure how I truly ended up in Panama. There was a lot of glossy real estate talk at the time, and we came down to Central America, and I came to Panama, and I just found a place that I really liked. And bingo, first trip here, I ended up buying a house. And that's when everything started for me in Panama.
What was it like buying a house? Was it a really involved process, or was it pretty simple?
Oh, very simple. Here's how much money we want. Give it to us, and you can have the house. So it was, I bought from a developer. I bought from the man who'd built the community that I live in now. And it really was very simple. In retrospect, there were a few things that I wish I'd known about that I didn't know how to do. But it was really very easy. It was an affordable price for me. And I gave them my money. And within a certain period of time, I got a title to the house. And then I found out what it's like to buy a house that's not a glossy real estate home.
Well, tell us.
Well, it was, the construction quality was not what I was used to. The roof leaked. The first time I came to visit was during the rainy season after I purchased it. And I opened the front door, and there's water coming down the stairs, and like a little waterfall. So I was shocked and horrified. And in Canada, if something like that had happened, I would have been very panicked, and I was. But that was the beginning of the process of learning how to get a house fixed in Panama. And that's happened a lot of times since then. But
you succeeded?
Yeah, I did. It took a couple of years, and I had to learn a lot more Spanish than I came down with. But over the course of the years, I mean, fixing up the house is the thing that's helped me to meet the people who live in my community, the local tradespeople. And that's all been part of an amazing process. I mean, I've had a lot of frustrations. But ultimately, I've absolutely loved the whole experience. So my time in Panama has been like this, sort of peaks and valleys. When I first arrived, I loved everything about it. The country was simple, the people were kind. I couldn't understand them, they couldn't understand me, but we smiled at each other, and just it seemed very easy to get things done. And then I arrive and there's a waterfall, and I realize I've bought a house that's not very well constructed. And so it's just, and then I find people to fix it, and everything goes nicely. And then I come back and things have been stolen, and I think, I can't live here. I don't speak the language well enough. It's been an ongoing process to learn to speak Spanish, so I go down into another valley. And then it's only stuff that I lost, and nothing happened, and I've met some more nice people. And gosh, my neighbors are terrific Panamanian business people, and they introduced me to, and I'm back up on another high. So it's kind of been like that, and I must say in the last 5 years, the valleys are very shallow, and the high points are consistently good. Excellent. So I don't want to be sort of overly glossy about living in Panama, but if you leave behind, you're not in Kansas anymore. It's not Western Canada. Things don't happen the same way. If you leave that behind and you say, I've moved to a new country, a new place, and I'm open to seeing what it's like. You drop your expectations of North America and you say, what's wonderful here? I mean, as soon as you do that, I think you just look at the country and you look at the people and you look at the construction, you look at whatever it is, and you just go, it's good. Everything's good. I'm pretty happy.
People often ask about the cost of living, and I always say it's very difficult to say because it depends on what you want and what your standard of living.
Yeah.
But in your feelings, what can you share about what you consider to be the cost of living here in Panama, how it compares to Western Canada for that?
Oh, considerably less for me, but I don't live high end. I have a lovely house, but I don't buy high-end, I shouldn't say high-end appliances, but I don't buy fancy furniture. You can spend a lot of money in Panama, and there are a lot of people here who live very well. But I live pretty modestly, and so for me, the cost of virtually everything is a lot less than it would be in Canada.
How about food, things of this sort, supermarkets and so on?
Oh, the supermarkets have changed tremendously over the years. Especially, I live in the Pacific Beaches, so an hour and a half outside of Panama City, and we now have probably 5 major grocery stores. When I first arrived, there was 1, and there were the local markets. Now we have 5, and you can buy virtually everything you want. If you want to pay $6 to buy a box of American cereal, you can do it. If you want to pay $2 to buy a more local cereal, you can do that. So for me, it's kind of the choices you make that drive which are driven for me by my budget. I sort of decide how much is reasonable for me to spend. So I find Panama, for me, my style of life, it's very affordable.
Excellent. Well, have you traveled much around the country, or do you pretty much focus on your own home? Of course, you're a snowbird, if I'm not incorrect. You come down.
Right.
Talk about that a little bit, because I think you've had some rental experiences too.
Yes. I live here part of the year. Most snowbirds come in November and stay until April. And I come and go, I don't do that. I come and go during the year. So I'll come for 2 months, January, February, go home for 2 months. So I'm as likely to be here in the rainy season as I am during the beautiful Panamanian summer. So I come and go, and when I'm not here, over the years I've tried a variety of things. I've rented the house out short term through the resort area that I live in. I've rented privately, and I've made some money, and I've had some very interesting experiences. One long-term rental was for 6 months because I was traveling other places, and I came back to discover that the gentleman had left. And he'd paid up rent up to the time I arrived, but he had actually left, and he'd dug up shrubs from the garden. He'd taken all of the Panamanian furniture and art that I had, and half of my dishes, and for some reason every single coat hanger in the house. It was the strangest experience to walk into your home and see kind of a half-empty room.
Is this an expatriate?
No, he was a South American fellow.
Well,
yeah,
expatriates.
They're expatriate, right, they are. Wasn't a Panamanian person, no. So I had that, and that was one of my valleys. That was one of the bottoms. And it's funny, the thing that bothered me most was that he dug up my ginger bushes, because I loved those flowers. So valley, and then you kind of regroup, refurnish, and say, okay, here's what I'm going to do next. And then the next time I decided to rent, I had a really good experience. This time I rented to some Canadians, and it worked out really well. We did half barter and half rent. So I ended up with some new furniture to replace what I had lost, and they ended up with a nice place to live. So now I'm not renting. I'm coming down more often, and I'm able to, just leave the house. Sometimes friends come down and stay. And that actually is one of the things I really like, is having a place that you can give to your friends or your family. That's worked really well for me. So.
Well, you mentioned about rental difficulties. I mean, do you have any experience with one of the property management agencies that are supposed to rent it out for you? Have you run into that, or have you done this strictly on your own?
No, I've done it that way too. The hotel that I'm part of initially did it, but it didn't really work very well. They didn't put much muscle behind it, so after a couple of years that had fizzled out. I used a Canadian property management company who are based here. They earned almost as much money from their commissions as I did, so I got disenchanted with that, and they didn't do repairs that I liked. But there are other people around now, I think. I mean, over the 9 years, a lot has changed. There's a lot more set up out where I live, and I think there are some property management companies now that might function all right.
I often tell people, don't blink or you miss something, because Panama changes. So quickly.
Just like that. I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And the area out on the beaches where I live has changed dramatically. Dramatically. Yeah. And my neighbors, like for me, I'm a single woman, so I wanted to live somewhere where there was a community around me, where I felt some kind of, where I would get to know the people I lived near. And it's gated in a bit of a sense, but there's a hotel there, so really they let everybody in. There's a few homes and a lot of condominiums. But for me, it's been an absolutely wonderful place. Neighbors on both sides are Panamanian business families who use their homes as weekend beach places. There are a number of Canadians, there are a few Americans, there are quite a few South Americans in our development. And I mean, I walk out my front door and I will meet 5 people that I know before I've gotten to the beach. So for me, it's been, and everybody who's there is there to relax, and as I say, it's either a weekend or vacation home for the local people, or it's other snowbirds, or there are a few long-time residents, all-year residents. So it's given me a community, mostly English-speaking, but some Spanish-speaking, that's been terrific.
That's good. Would you have any particular advice to give somebody coming down, how they approach the country at first, how much time they spend looking, or where they look? Sometimes people come down with very specific itineraries before they've even gotten here.
Right,
and
right.
That sometimes falls apart almost immediately because they get to see other things. But
yeah.
in reflecting on the back, in the past, what would you have done differently, if anything, in your first visits to Panama? Anything?
To be honest, no.
You ended up where you wanted to be.
I mean, it was just luck. I think that I ended up someplace that I've ended up being really happy. I looked at a lot of different developments before I picked the one I did, and the one I did is as problematic as any development is here, but I love it. I love it. I'd say for most people, I think the best thing to do is to come to Panama and rent. Rent in a couple of different locations, and then see how do you feel in the country? Do you like it? I mean, the biggest surprise for me, because I'd read all the glossy real estate brochures before I came and websites that were promoting Panama, people speak English, it's got first world internet, it's all this. For my experience, there's a thin gloss of the first world and an awful lot more of a developing country. Out where I live, very few people speak English. Virtually none of the tradespeople that I've come to know and use over the years, virtually none of them speak English. So you need to be ready to take on the language of the country that you've come to live in. Or develop a close friend who is Spanish speaking, because that's really the only thing that makes any sense. So anybody who comes down who's not willing to do that, in my view, you're setting yourself up for tremendous frustrations. Oh, they can't understand me. Of course they can't understand you. You're not speaking the language of the country. No, it's... So
how did you learn your Spanish? Did you just do experience, or did you actually go to classes? Or?
I've done, you name it, I've done it. I've done it. I try. I do online learning. I've attended a Spanish school. I practice. And I have, like, people who are currently, I have a gardener and a cleaning woman who regularly come and look after my house. They are both blessed in that they speak slowly. They mostly speak in the present tense until I can figure out other ways to do it. And they have voices that are easy for my ears to understand. So I can now get virtually everything done around the house, repairs, shopping, whatever. I can do that really quite well. What I can't do is I can't make jokes. I can't have good conversations. I can't express myself very well. So my relationships with my neighbors who only speak Spanish is very, very pleasant and very, very nice, but not very deep. You know, I feel like they've got my back and they know I would help them out, but we can't talk about things in that same way. So it's ongoing. I think other people have an easier time learning languages. It seems to be hard for me. People say I'm doing well, but I know that it's nothing like I can, you know, nothing like I can speak English. So I think I'll never be satisfied with how well I do.
Oh, I can understand that.
Yeah, well,
Never satisfied.
Yeah.
Well, as you mentioned, though, they speak in the present tense. I mean, the conversational Spanish spoken here in the street and in markets, whatever, is really much simpler than what people have had to learn in high school or college back home. I had people who were very frightened of the Spanish because they had these memories of the old days. I say, relax, it's okay.
Right.
It's really a much simpler version, and you work your way into it.
You do. And I find, like in stores or whatever, people in general are really appreciative. Really, I mean, it sounds so cliche-ish, but they really are appreciative. If I try and express something and they can't quite get it, but we all persist, they're almost always appreciative. They go, okay, you know, this person's trying. So.
We're not the first expatriates they've seen.
No, well,
no. Very patient,
no,
you know?
yeah. And I find people are, in general, people are incredibly polite. And
That's important.
Yeah,
It's important for us to be polite, too, the people coming down. And,
I totally agree. And that cycles back to what I say, drop your expectations from home. This is not home. If you want home, live at home. This is a different country, and if you go slowly and look around and open your eyes and ears, know that people here have good hearts, which I think people around the world do, my personal belief. But just, you know, come in, be ready, listen.
Relax.
Yeah, relax. Yeah, relax.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Very much appreciate
You're welcome. Nice talking to you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.